Everyone, welcome to the Contra Costa County Student Wellness Series.
Bienvenidos a todos a la reunión de Contra Costa.
We are very excited to welcome you to our first section, Sexual Orientation, Gender Identity and Expression, Fluency and
Entonces estamos aquí en la orientación sexual, identidad de género y expresión sexual.
Spanish translation for this event. Our entrepreneur will give instructions on how to hear the presentation in Spanish.
Y vamos a tener una interpretación en español para esta actividad.
Next slide. Angela, if you could read the instructions for the Spanish channel, please.
Yes, I certainly will. Asegúrese de leer la aplicación más actualizada de Zoom Client para computadora o teléfonos celulares. El canal intérprete no funciona con navegadores de la web. Usted puede descargar la aplicación de Zoom Client en el siguiente enlace. Participe en el seminario en línea de Zoom utilizando la aplicación Zoom Client desde su computadora o teléfono celular. Haga clic en el icono que se parece a un globo terráqueo. Seleccione el idioma adecuado. En este punto tendrá la opción de silenciar audio original para que solo escuche la traducción.
So we're going to get to some basic logistics. First things first, this presentation is being recorded. Luckily for all of you attendees, you guys aren't being recorded. Sadly for us panelists, we are. And the webinar recording will be made available after this presentation. And I'm sure either Nicole or another one of the panelists will give more information about that closer to the end. If you guys get any questions during the presentation, please submit them in the Q&A box. We'll be monitoring them throughout the presentation, and afterwards we will have some question and answer time. We'll also be using the polling feature, which will allow us to gather feedback from everyone. This feedback is anonymous, so your name will not be placed on it or any personal details. Lastly, we'll be providing a bunch of resource links through the chat box. If you aren't able to access them for any reason, don't worry, as they'll be sent out to all attendees via email after this. Next slide.
Hi.
So we should probably get to some Courage member introductions first. My name is Drew. I'm a junior, 11th grade in Contra Costa County, and my pronouns are he, him.
Hi, my name is Cece. I'm a 10th grader in the Contra Costa County, and my pronouns are she, her.
Hi, my name is Mina, and I'm an 8th grader in Contra Costa County, and my pronouns are she, her. Next slide. Courage was established through a partnership between Contra Costa County Office of Education and the Center for Human Development. Courage is filled with about 30 students ranging from 8th grade to 12th graders from all over Contra Costa County. Courage stands for C, our advocacy, G, generation, and education. Courage is a youth-centered and directed leadership and advocacy group working to address issues and prevention of youth tobacco, marijuana, prescription drugs, and alcohol use and abuse. We use our voices to educate and present to local decision makers. Courage accepts new students' applications each spring. For the following school year, we will be accepting applications soon, so keep an eye out for that if you would like to join. Next slide.
Next, we would like to thank our sponsor and host, the Contra Costa County Office of Education, or CCCOE. CCCOE is an essential part of Contra Costa's outstanding public school system. Together with their 18 school districts and numerous community partners, they prepare students in Contra Costa County to learn, lead, and achieve. Providing support services to schools and school districts, CCCOE has a long history of providing direct services to some of our county's most vulnerable students. CCCOE also serves as an advocate for education and youth in our county, helps to increase public awareness of educational issues, and lead the way with bold countywide initiatives.
And now to the main event. We have the honor of having two great and knowledgeable presenters from the Rainbow Community Center based in Concord. And it's my pleasure to introduce Nick and Parisa. Next slide, please.
All right, thank you all so much for that amazing intro. I really think that like Courage sounds like such a cool program, and I'm really excited to be here. So who am I, you might ask? My name is Parisa, and I use they, them, theirs pronouns. I identify as queer and non-binary and white and Persian. I'm an associate social worker at Rainbow Community Center, which means for me that I provide therapy services to folks within the LGBTQIA+ community through Rainbow. And I'm going to introduce our next panelist, whose name is Nick, and I will pass it off.
Awesome. Thanks, Parisa. My name is Nick. I am a youth outreach coordinator at the Rainbow Community Center. My pronouns are they, them, theirs. I identify as queer and non-binary. What my position as a youth outreach coordinator is I support the youth, all of you. I provide youth groups. We do field trips. We do dances. I provide mentorship. I also support with the youth housing program for youth ages 18 to 25 experiencing homelessness. So I provide support to them and connect them to resources and so that they can find long-term housing. So that's a little bit about me. I'll pass it back to you, Parisa.
Thanks, Nick. I also realized we were going to kind of share a fun fact about ourselves, and our fun fact was going to be which like movie or cartoon or book character is our hashtag goals. And for me, mine is Uncle Iroh from Avatar, or also Garnet from Steven Universe. Those are my like goals. What are your goals, Nick?
For me, I would have to agree with Garnet from Steven Universe, and literally anyone from the cast of Pose.
Awesome, thank you. I wish that we could see all your faces and hear what you all had to say about this too, but you can share it with each other later maybe, or in the chat. So as they introduced us earlier, our theme today is sexual orientation, gender identity, and expression. And so this is something that you folks voted for as something that they wanted to have as one of your sessions. And so we're really excited to present this to you. But before we get started, there's a lot going on in the world. We all kind of are coming into this space in different ways. You might have had a long day. You might be stressed. There's a lot going on in the news right now. So we just wanted to get a little bit of a sense of where you are today, like how you're coming in. So you all might be familiar with the annotate feature. And I see someone has already gotten in there. So if you go to the top of your screen, you'll probably see a green bar and you'll see that you're seeing my screen, and you can go to view options and to choose to annotate and just give us a little glance at kind of like where you are. You could use a little stamp. I'll use a stamp too. I'll give you a little star. Where am I today? I'm like, I like the sleepy kitty. I think I'm gonna go with excited kitty. I'm seeing some stuff popping up here. We have some little cute faces. We got some excitement going. Oh, we had a sleepy one, but it went away. All right, we got this cool cat. We have another sleepy. Yes, sleepies. All right. Thank you all for kind of giving us a sense. I see we have some excitement here, which I'm really glad about, because we're excited too. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and clear this. Sorry, kitties, we're gonna go away for now. All right, and now, now that you've heard a little bit about us, you've heard a little bit about Courage, we want to share with you a little bit about what Rainbow Community Center does in the community. So we're going to show you a little bit of a video so you can have some more information. So maybe you want to get involved with us later. So I'm going to, let me know if you can hear the volume on this. Is it not going to play? I tested this out before to make sure it worked, but it didn't. Let's see. Nope. Okay, well, that's all right. I'll bring this. I'm gonna stop my screen share just for a second to make sure I can get us up there to our proper link. And I'm gonna open it on this one. Okay. Thank you all for being patient with me as we had some issues with our slides earlier, so this could be why. All right. Now this one isn't working anyway. Nick, I would love for you to tell us a little bit about the youth program while I'm bringing this up, if that's okay.
Yes, perfect. So our youth program, we serve youth ages 12 to 25. If you're under the age of 12, you're more than welcome to attend our groups. You would just need parent permission. We do different things like open mics, we have game nights, we did a virtual field trip. We went to the aquarium in Switzerland to watch the polar bear cubs. That was really cute. We have different workshops. This last month, we had a workshop on Women's History Month and talking about LGBTQ figures. We come to your school if you need support with your GSA or QSA or need help getting started with one, we can offer that support. We do so much. We have dances. Before COVID, we would have dances. And field trips, we'd go to the Castro every summer. That's something I'm looking forward to doing once the pandemic is over. And we do one-on-one mentoring. So if you need support with something regarding your gender identity or sexuality, or needing help coming up with a plan on how to talk to your parents or friends or family about it, we can offer that support for you. That's a little bit about youth programming, and as well as we are doing everything virtual right now. So if you're interested, we have an Instagram, we have a Facebook, and we have a TikTok account that you can get more information on how to sign up for our virtual youth groups. It's a little bit about that. And back to Parisa.
All right, thank you so much, Nick, for our little technical difficulties. Now I will officially share this about Rainbow Community Center. And let's make sure the sound is working too. Okay, nope. All right, okay. We'll make sure that as I do share screen, that it is showing the sound too. All right, take two.
Rainbow Community Center's mission really centers around building community and promoting the well-being among lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, intersex folks in our community, plus.
We serve the underserved. We really look at supporting everyone, but also really I think Rainbow's focus has been, the most marginalized in our community.
We have our older adults programming, our clinical services, which are pretty robust.
Our youth program is amazing. We do a lot of work. We do off-site programming and on-site programming.
We offer counseling here at the center as well. We have HIV and Hep C testing and special events such as dances. Sometimes we cook, watch movies.
We also have our homeless transitional youth program.
The program is designed to help LGBTQ homeless youth ages 12 to 24. So my job is mainly geared to helping them to get into the program and then helping them to get permanent housing.
A former teacher, she referred me to Miss Rashida because I'm homeless, and that's how I came in contact with the Rainbow Community Center.
So we have a myriad of adult support groups, from trans identified to parents of young people who are identifying. This is a time in history that hasn't happened for us. We've moved all of our programming online. So virtually, we're able to do things like Zoom calls and support groups and telehealth with clinical visits and therapy and our community training. And again, what's great about this training is that it's not just for the county. We can start here, but through virtual, we're able to break the walls down and we can have people from all around the world. I think it's important to continue to inform and dismantle as many stigmas around our community as possible.
It's a way to validate our young people, where in their minds they're thinking they're different or they're thinking they're weird. They're not supposed to have these thoughts because of these outside messages. These young people get that validation. They get that confirmation of, oh, there are people who are just like me. I'm just like everybody else, except a little special with a rainbow in the back.
Having them housed and having them in a place, a community that they can come into and feel welcome and feel safe, that's why it's important.
I'm thankful there's people in this world that care about us. We already are not wanted like in a lot of places, so like when you come here, it's definitely a lot of love.
Like every dollar really does help, so nothing is too small.
The more allies we have, the more our cause can be heard and our ability to move forward can happen.
All right. So I hope that that kind of gave you a little bit of a sense of kind of what we do here at Rainbow. And I'm going to make sure that I switch us back over to our PowerPoint. I have to make sure I'm on the right one. This is the one. All right. So as you can see, Rainbow offers a lot of different services to the community, including a really awesome youth program and including trainings, which you all are currently a part of during this webinar. So you're already becoming a part of Rainbow right now. So I just want to go over our agenda a little bit. This is all based on some of the stuff that folks said they were interested in for a webinar. So we've kind of done our welcome. We're going to go into talking a little bit about what SOGIE is. And then we're going to talk a little bit about knowing some of the rights that folks have. And then we're going to talk about kind of how to show up as an ally for folks. And then we're also going to have a question and answer session. So earlier folks said that you can put your questions in the question and answer box on Zoom. And we'll be using that later to answer some questions for you all at the end of this. Okay, so I'm going to give you a little rundown about what SOGIE is, because it's kind of an acronym that we've been starting to use just to acknowledge that everyone has a sexual orientation, a gender identity, and a gender expression. Every single person has this. So to kind of break it down a little bit, we've got sexual orientation, which many of you may have heard of. So that would be a person's physical, romantic, emotional, aesthetic, or other form of attraction to other people. And that's not the same as what your gender identity is. So for me, I view my sexual orientation as queer. That's different than my gender identity, which would be non-binary. And so a gender identity is someone's individual identification of their gender, their deeply held sense of who they are in terms of their gender. You get to decide what your gender identity is, and that can be different from what your sex assigned at birth may have been. And we'll kind of get into that term a little bit later too. But it's basically who you are in terms of your gender. And that could be a man, that could be a woman, that could be non-binary, that could be another gender. There are many different gender identities that you might be able to identify with. And then your gender expression, the E in SOGIE, is how you express your gender to the world, how you communicate that through maybe your haircut, your voice, your clothing, all of the different ways that you express your gender and communicate that with other people. So that's SOGIE, that's the term that we're really working with here. And we also want to give you another video that kind of breaks down this other acronym that you've probably heard a bit about, which is LGBTQI+, and we're going to show you a little bit about what that can also mean. and we're gonna bear with me for a second while we move back to YouTube. Since the other one is not working, we'll close that. All right. Nope, nope, not that. There we go.
Acronyms and words. Everybody sees them, not everyone knows what they mean. For example, what does this acronym stand for? And is there an easier way to say this? Let's break it down. Lesbian, a woman who is attracted to other women. Gay, refers to a man who is attracted to other men. This term is also used for anyone who is attracted to another person with the same gender identity. Bisexual, refers to a person who is attracted to both men and women. Transgender, refers to a person whose gender identity, the sense of gender that every person feels inside, or gender expression is different from the sex that was assigned to them at birth. Queer, an umbrella term sometimes used to refer to a person whose attraction and/or identity goes beyond the traditional definitions associated with sexual orientation and gender identity. Different people use this term to mean different things. Questioning refers to a person who is questioning their sexual orientation or gender identity. Intersex refers to a person whose sexual anatomy or chromosomes do not fit with the traditional markers of female or male. Pansexual refers to a person who is sexually or emotionally attracted to people of any sex or gender identity. Two-spirit, a tradition in many First Nations that considers sexual minorities to have both male and female spirits. Asexual refers to a person who does not identify with any sexual orientation. Ally, a straight and cisgender person who supports equality for all. These words mean a lot of different things for a lot of different people. You may come across acronyms that...
All right, so I know that was a really speedy breakdown of what, let me get back to my PowerPoint, of what these different terms mean. So I know that might have felt a little bit fast, but we're actually gonna start to apply some of these words in a second, and Nick is gonna do that in just a second. And yeah, actually, Nick is gonna do that now. So let me introduce you to that slide.
Awesome. So a way that we use to kind of identify ourselves or explain how these different SOGIE exists is we use the gender unicorn, or a gender spectrum is another way we could have used. But the gender unicorn breaks up into sections: gender identity, gender expression, sex assigned at birth, sexual attraction, and emotional attraction, or romantic attraction. I wanted to first touch on romantic attraction because that was not something that was mentioned in that video. While people can be sexually attracted to men, women, non-binary folks, or anyone, there's also romantic, and that doesn't necessarily have to be the same thing. So for folks who may identify as asexual, they may not be sexually attracted to anyone, but they may be romantically attracted to someone, to people. Or they can be asexual and aromantic, or aromantic but not asexual. So there's many different ways that can exist. As far as gender identity, I'm going to go ahead and actually plot myself. So I'm going to annotate and get me a nice stamp. So for my gender, well, let's start at sex assigned at birth, actually. So when I was born, I came out and the doctor said I was female. So I sit here. I don't know if you can see that star. Yeah. But as I was growing to understand myself, I realized I wasn't a girl. So what I realized that I wasn't cisgender. So cisgender is a word that to describe people whose sex assigned at birth aligned with their gender identity. So that is another word you could use for folks. I realized I did not identify as a woman or a girl. but at the time I didn't know that there was another option. So I sat probably here for a good amount of my young age. I identified as a trans guy. And then I realized, I found out non-binary was a term that existed. And I realized this is actually who I am. Like, this is me. I didn't necessarily feel comfortable with being a man, but I didn't think there was another option. I knew I didn't feel comfortable being a girl. So now this is where around kind of here is where I sit. And who knows, it could change in the future. As far as my gender expression, when I was growing up, you know, your parents when you're little, they dress you. So because I was assigned female at birth, dressed very feminine. In middle school, I dressed pretty feminine and masculine. I would combine like skirts with bow ties, or like I'd wear dresses with jeans underneath. It was the look I thought was the best look ever. So I would very much dress like that in middle school. And now I think I dress pretty masculine still, pretty androgynous, and like with a dash, let's actually, so there's not confusion, with maybe a dash of feminine. Every now and then I like to do makeup, full look. It's really cute. As far as my sexual attraction, I'm attracted to everyone. That is another term that could be used is pansexual, but I use the word queer for me. So I'm attracted to women, men, and other genders. As well as romantically, I am attracted to women, men, and other genders. So that's a little bit about me. And I will pass it to Parisa to annotate their gender unicorn.
Awesome. Thank you, Nick. Let me get my little annotation tool out. The gender unicorn is so fun. And I know that Nicole is going to be sending you a copy of the gender unicorn. You might have even already gotten it in the chat. I can't see the chat, so I don't know. But you're definitely getting a copy. And I think we also put in a Spanish copy as well. So we've got that. My little like top bar is kind of blocking my ability to annotate parts of the gender unicorn. So I might not be able to fully annotate correctly, but that's okay. So for me, I'll start where Nick started, which was at sex assigned at birth, because I was assigned female at birth when I was born. The doctors were like, yep, that's a female child. And then they also said that that means that I was a girl, which is not necessarily correct. So I'll put female there. Okay. This happened last time. I'm gonna press escape for a second, but we're gonna go back into full screen. I think my cursor has disappeared, but it's okay. Hold on, maybe it's not okay. There we go. Okay, we're good. All right, so my gender expression, or my gender identity, I already explained earlier, would be non-binary, but I did for a long time when I was growing up think that I was, you know, a girl. I definitely identified with that. And I did also start to question, like, you know, I hung out with a lot of trans folks when I was in high school and college, and most of them were kind of trans masculine or trans men. And so I was like, man, am I a trans guy? I don't know. And I eventually got to the place where I decided that non-binary was the term for me. So that was, for me, that's another other gender. It's outside of man or woman. Sorry, my cursor just really likes to disappear on me sometimes. So it's a little hard to do this. And it doesn't, nope. All right, we're back. I apologize for my cursor struggles. All right, so yes, non-binary, so another gender identity. And then my expression has definitely moved from feminine when I was younger to more masculine as I got older. So I was definitely feminine. And then I kind of was more masculine in like middle school, but then I moved back to feminine. And then I moved even further to feminine. And then I kind of started being more in the masculine area. And now I kind of find myself probably over here. I would say maybe a little more on the masculine side, maybe a little, sometimes a little feminine, but that's kind of where I started to land in this kind of androgynous leaning more masculine zone. And in terms of sexual attraction, I also identify as someone who is queer. And for me, that means being attracted to a lot of genders. And another really deep part of that for me is that the word queer for me is a pretty political word. And for me, it means that it represents something more than just who I'm attracted to. It's about going against the norms of who you should be attracted to or how you should look. And a lot of other systems, like going against like the patriarchy, going against white supremacy, going against like oppressive systems. So for me, queer kind of encompasses all of that. And it's about a lot more than who I'm attracted to. But I am, again, my cursor has gone away, but that's how it's gonna be. But I'll just verbally tell you, I tend to be more attracted to women, sometimes men, and also very attracted to other genders as well. So other non-binary folks, I would say, are encompassed in that. And then romantically and emotionally attracted, very similarly, women, sometimes men, and then other genders as well. And so that's kind of my gender unicorn. And what we would really love is for you all to be able to annotate this as well. And if I could make my thing work a little bit better, I could clear this. But if you all go to annotate, you can start annotating. Oh, thank you. Whoever just, Nick probably just cleared it. Thank you, Nick. I see that someone has a raised hand. I love seeing all these annotations come up. This is fantastic. Oh, I'm so sorry. Oh no, there we go. Oh my gosh, my cursor is back. Okay, I was struggling again. All right, this looks awesome. Thank you all for putting yourselves on here. You can see how everyone's gender unicorn is unique and magical, just like the unicorn itself. All right, well, I think as we kind of think about the gender unicorn, we also like to think about, as we have all of these different identities going on, we also have something else that's important that you've probably heard a lot about, which would be pronouns. And pronouns are the way that we like to refer to people. Often, like, if we're talking about them, if it's in the third person, and your pronouns, there is no specific pronoun that goes to a specific gender identity. And so you could be a cis woman, and many cis women might use she and her, but they might also use they and them. A non-binary person might use they and them, or they might also use she and her, or they might use both. So you can't necessarily assume someone's gender based on their pronoun, and you can't necessarily assume someone's pronoun based on their gender. And so for Nick and I both, we both use they them pronouns. And some people get a little bit tripped up by that, but there's a lot of ways that we actually use they, them pronouns all the time without even noticing it. So if someone, let's see, drops off, if you're like, hey, someone left a package at your house, you'd say, oh, what did they look like, right? That would be a perfect example of using they, them without even noticing it. And so some people want you to do that intentionally, and it's important to respect that people are asking you to use, because if someone wants to share their pronouns with you, it means that they want you to see them authentically and be a part of their life. And so it's really an invitation to be in community with them. And so it's important to respect that and use the pronouns that they're asking. And some people also will say, oh, well, you know, it's not grammatically correct to use they, them pronouns, but actually it's been in use since before people were using the word you commonly. And since the 1300s, it has been a pronoun that folks have been using to refer to a single person. And the dictionary has more recently added it to make sure that people understand that like this is a real thing that people can use as their pronoun. And so when we're thinking about that, it can sometimes be hard for folks to, I'm gonna clear these so we can go to the next slide. Sometimes we get a little bit insecure about using them and like what happens when we might mess up someone's pronoun or accidentally do something wrong. So we actually have some tips for you on what you can do when you're trying to get someone's pronouns right. So you can, one of the main things is just correcting yourself and moving on. So just a quick little slip and then being like, oops, like, got it, let me just correct myself, and we'll just keep going. And that's okay. And, you know, thanking folks if they correct you. Again, just moving on. You don't need to make a huge, like, giant 5-page apology to someone, because that can be a little distracting. You know, you were having a conversation about like what the homework is, and they're like, I just really want to know what the homework is. Like, you don't need to talk to me for 10 minutes about how sorry you are and make me feel bad for having pronouns that are hard for you, right? And you can also kind of quickly correct people as well if you're noticing that someone is having some trouble. And just kind of keep practicing it to yourself, continue to say it to yourself 3 different times, right? Meeting up with someone. I recently heard about some grandparents of a trans child who named their Roomba after their grandchild, and like used she her pronouns for the Roomba so that they, when they went to go visit, they wouldn't mess up her pronouns and her name. And I thought that was hilarious. I was like, that's such a great idea. Like, yes. And I know that Nick has talked about people using their pets to practice. So that could be a really good way. And just making sure that you're not making folks feel like a burden, like I was saying before, for having pronouns that you're having a hard time with. And, you know, not making them alleviate your guilt about how sorry you might be. So these are just some kind of like easy ways to just make sure you're getting it right. And the little header says to affirm and lead with love. And that's really how we want to be showing up for people. And I am going to pass it on back to Nick.
Yeah, thank you, Teresa.
Wait, I lied. I'm not passing it back to you yet. So speaking of getting pronouns right, we've got our next section is about allyship, which Nick is going to lead, but I'm going to explain to you a little bit of something we're going to do, which is we're going to create a little word cloud. So if you go to menti.com and then you use this little code, you will be able to answer the question, what is an ally? And I am going to switch my screen in a second back to and we'll be able to actually see it all show up live. All right, here we are. And this one will also tell you go to menti.com, use this code, and we'll be able to see what allies mean to you.
I would just like to inform you voting is currently closed, so you have to open it.
Oh, thank you. All right. Well, while I'm doing that, let's have Nick is gonna take us through a visualization.
Awesome. Thanks, Grace. I want folks to just take a moment. I'm going to ask a few reflecting questions, and you can close your eyes or you can just keep them open. It's totally fine, whatever you want. But I want you to think of a time when you really needed someone to have your back. It could be any situation you can think of. It could be related to LGBTQ. It can be a situation where someone said something that made you feel uncomfortable or made you feel unsafe. A situation where people were teasing another person, anything. And really think about what was going on in that situation and how you were feeling. And then think about, was there someone who showed up for you, who stood up for you, was able to make the situation better, was able to redirect it? And how, if someone was able to do that, how did that make you feel in that situation? How were you able to get that sense of safety back or sense of comfort back? And if there wasn't someone who was able to stand up for you in that moment, how would you have liked them to? What would have made that situation better for you and everyone involved? And how did it feel standing on your own in that moment if there was no one there? So those are a lot of questions. And just take a minute or a moment to think about that. And with that situation, though that situation we're thinking about, that was a time where we probably needed an ally in that moment. And thinking about why, because of the way that situation made us feel, why being an ally is so important. Because we want to make sure that no one's made to feel that way ever again. So that's why the importance of showing up for each other and taking all that we are learning today is so important, so that we can make sure that our friends, our families, our peers, everyone is made to feel comfortable. So yeah, I want to pass it back to Parisa with the mentee. Yeah.
All right, can you all see the word cloud that we're building? Hopefully you can see it. So can I get a thumbs up from someone? We can see it. All right, yeah, cool, thank you. Also, thanks, Nick, for that visualization. All right, so we can see that we've got a lot of really important words up here. Look at this, the words supportive, supporter, support are like, looks like multiple people have been thinking about those. We have being an advocate, respectful, accepting, friends, love, caring, empathy, people who you can trust, defenders, yes. Cheerleader, celebrating, empathetic. This is awesome. So you can see that for allyship, folks are a safe person. Love is a huge one. A big brother. So all of these words are some of the things that we think about when we think about someone being an ally to us. did anyone, I really wish that we could have folks share any of their ally experiences, but I'm wondering if Nick has an ally experience to share.
Yes. A great situation where someone was able to be an ally was in school. My teacher accidentally used the wrong pronouns for me. And in that class, I had actually like 4 of my best friends. And as soon as my teacher did it, like all 4 of them, like their hands shot up all at once. And they were like, hey, like, I just wanted to let you know, like, Nick's pronouns are they, them. And the teacher was like, oh, I'm so sorry. And I was having a bad day that day. Usually I would just correct the teacher, but I was just like, I'm over it right now. I'm like having a bad day. And so it felt really nice to have people who had my back. And also being in that situation, there were like another, 26 kids in the class besides me and my friends who may have not known that that the teacher did anything wrong. And so now being able to like let them know that these are the pronouns that I use. That was a really great moment. And I really appreciate it to this day, like those friends, because they're still really close friends of mine. And having people like that who have my back and know what's up and know that it's like a lot of work sometimes to like have to correct people constantly and being like, hey, we got you too. So yeah, that's a great moment of having an ally. Teresa, did you have a good story of allyship or when you maybe needed an ally?
Yeah, I was really thinking about, I was kind of thinking about sharing some pronoun experiences, but maybe I'll save that one. I was thinking about like the first thing that came to my mind when we were planning this training was actually a teacher that I had who I feel like really like was able to show her support of my queerness when I was in high school. And I think about her and like how we were doing this project and we had to like do research. We were like, this was back in, the early-ish 2000s. And we were building like a little website with HTML and we were supposed to find like an author. This was for my Spanish class and we were supposed to like write about them. And I was like, I don't know who to do. And this teacher was like, you should do Gloria Anzaldúa, who I don't know if you all know, but she's like a really awesome Chicana feminist who is also a queer woman. And she's amazing. And when that teacher said that to me and I like looked up this person, I was like, oh, this teacher sees me, like she knows like who I am. And it felt really supportive and great to feel seen. And like this teacher like really wanted to encourage my growth and like my identity. And to like offer me a really awesome resource for like a really like amazing like cultural figure and writer. So I think about that kind of like, I'm going to show you that I like can see you and I know who you are and I want you to feel like good and supported in this class. And so that was I'll like counter like, difficult experience with the teacher, like not using pronouns, and then like another experience with the teacher who was like really validating and supporting of queerness. I'm gonna switch us back to our slideshow in a second. Nope, that's not this one. All right, cool. So we also wanted to, we'll come back a little bit to allyship later, but I wanted to bring us to the next part, which is thinking about how the law supports us. And I'm going to share some polls in a second, and Nick will take over. All right.
Yeah. So yeah, we've just posted a few polls. It's okay if you don't know them. I will go over it. And this is also going to be a document that will be shared with each of you. but there are actually a lot of laws that protect LGBTQ students in schools. So go ahead and fill that out. Yeah, and we can go over them. I'm gonna give folks another minute to fill out. It's totally okay if you don't know the answers. Just take a guess. It's totally fine. Awesome. Seems like most folks have filled out the poll, so I'm gonna go ahead and end it. Thanks everyone for playing. Yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and share the results as well. So we'll go over each of these questions. So for number 1, history and or social studies teachers are legally required to include LGBTQ plus people in their lesson plans. So for people who answered true, you're correct. And for people who answered false, you're also correct. So for the true people in the state of California, this is true. People are legally, social studies and history teachers are legally required to include LGBTQ plus people in their lesson plans. And this law is called the California Fair Education Act, which will be in the document that it will be sent to you. But it is false because it is not it is also false because it's not a federal law, so not all states adhere to this. Number 2, it is legal for a school to ban you from establishing a LGBTQ plus, such as a GSA or QSA, if parents are complaining about it for religious reasons. Most people answered false. And you are correct. This is false. For any publicly funded schools, and I want to clarify that it's for any public schools, because the Federal Equal Access Act, that is not allowed. So you are allowed to start a QSA or GSA, regardless of religious preferences of parents. Number 3, it is legal for your teacher to ignore when a student in your classroom says that's so gay. In the state of California, this is false. This is called under AB 9, which is also known as Seth's Law. This is false, so they have to intervene in that instance. Number 4, it's legal for your school to prevent you from using the bathroom of your gender identity as long as they let you use the bathroom in the teacher's lounge. That is also false. In the state of California, under the under AB 1266, which is the School Success and Opportunity Act. It's also known as the bathroom law. But yeah, you are allowed to use whatever bathroom that you prefer and aligns with your gender identity. Teachers in the lounge being your only option isn't allowed. So you should be able to use the bathroom that aligns with your gender identity. Number 5, it's legal for your school administrators to send you home if you are wearing a dress they perceive you to be a boy. That is false in the state of California. Under the Student Safety and Violence Prevention Act of 2000, it's also known as AB 537. Number 6, it is illegal for teachers to exclude trans people when teaching about sex education. That is very false. In the state of California, under the California Comprehensive Sexual Health and HIV and AIDS Prevention Act, they have to include sexual education that is comprehensive for all gender identities, races, physical abilities, and ethnicities. If you're number 7, if you're dealing with LGBTQ plus discrimination at school, you have to deal with it alone. I'm glad most people said false. There are so many different national and local organizations, including the Rainbow Community Center, that support LGBTQ people across the country. Being part of an allyship, being an ally means supporting LGBTQ plus by providing these resources. So there are so many different organizations. There are teachers on your campus, I'm sure, and administrators or people you can go to. There is us. You can always reach out to us. And being in the Bay Area, there is a myriad of LGBTQ organizations that will fight for you, that will support you, that will provide you with all the resources that you need. Awesome. Yeah. And just a reminder that these laws will be shared with you in both English and Spanish, and they're good to know that you have ways to be protected in schools for LGBTQ folks. Yeah, I'll pass it back to Carissa.
All right, thanks, Nick. So speaking of laws and kind of like how the law shows up for you, we're gonna kind of think a little bit about like going back to allyship. What would you do in some of the following situations? And I think Nick is gonna take on this one as well, but I'll be launching the polls for you.
Awesome.
So yeah, what would you do in these situations?
So we're gonna give a few situations, and there's so many different ways to intervene in a situation in order to be an ally. So the options would be, if there was a situation that someone needed an ally, there is an option to either say something to the group or individual, pull someone aside and talk with them privately. You can seek help, or you can ignore the situation or walk away. So we want to know, in these situations, what would you do? Then we will give a few more seconds. Awesome. And I will share the results. So in these two scenarios that we gave you, a group of students is using the phrase "that's gay" to describe something they don't like. How do you respond? So a lot of folks said they would say something to the group or individual. That's a great option. Let folks know that, like, yeah, that phrase isn't a great one to use when you don't like something. You could just say, "I don't like something," and just show how that the impact of using that phrase in a negative way can impact other people. Pull some to aside and talk about them privately. Sometimes that's the better option. Some people don't like to be confronted in front of their friends for something. And it can escalate the situation. So sometimes pulling someone aside and talking to them privately is the better way to go. If you feel like you don't have a good enough handle on the situation, talk to an adult, reach out, go get someone who you know will be able to help the situation. I also want to like understand. I understand like some folks don't feel comfortable in that situation, especially if you are someone who identifies in the LGBTQ community. Um, Not wanting to be the one to step up and say something can sometimes feel scary, or it may be in a situation where you don't feel safe with those people. So I want to like affirm the people who may just walk away from the situation out of whatever reasons that they got going on. Um, but for our allies, yeah, definitely try at least to, if you're gonna walk away, maybe go get someone to help. Yeah. Number two, you hear someone using the wrong pronouns for a friend of yours while they're not present. What do? Say something to the group or individual. A lot of y'all said that. Pull someone aside and talk about it with them. Just like I said in the last scenario, some people just don't like to take criticism in front of a large group, and it may just escalate the situation. So pulling someone aside, but making sure that you're correcting them for sure, or saying something at least, and making sure that people know in the future to get it right. But thank you all for sharing your wisdom and like showing, um, kind of just thinking about reflecting on these situations, because they definitely do come up. So taking getting a little bit of practice on allyship. Yeah, awesome. I'll stop sharing and I'll pass it back to Carissa.
Okay, I'm muted. Cool. I'm kind of, yeah, I'm really thinking about um, what we were talking about in terms of like how kind of like who you are, your identities, your experiences, like what kind of like power you have in a situation is really going to impact how you can show up. And sometimes that'll mean that you like feel afraid for yourself, or sometimes that means that you have enough like privilege in that situation where like you know that you can do something and you're going to be safe and you're going to be helping someone else. And so it's important to kind of, like Nick was saying, validate that like sometimes you do have to ignore the situation and walk away or seek help, and sometimes you can like step in and do something that like is more like direct, and like really like talking to people. um I'm kind of thinking, this wasn't part of our plan, but I think it would be cool if we went back to annotate and see if people could put in like a text box, like on this slide, what you would want someone to do for you in a situation like this. So if you go back to your annotate and you use the text feature, what kinds of support would you want in either one of these situations or another situation where you feel like, maybe like earlier when we were talking about when you might have needed an ally, like what are the kinds of support? Yeah, thank you. I'm seeing folks hit stuff up here. Stand up for me. Yeah, it'd be great to have someone stand up for you. Be a friend. Yes. Advocate. Yeah. It's also like when you're talking to folks, it's important to ask them how you want them to show up for you. And even thinking about the LGBTQIA+ community, you know, sometimes someone might be out at school and not to their family, and kind of checking in with them, like, how can I best be an ally to you, like at school or like when I come over to your house? You know, maybe your parents don't know that you use they, them pronouns. Like, what pronouns do you want me to use when I come over for a visit? I mean, when we can come over for visits again, but one day we'll come over for sleepovers and dinners. I'm gonna, oops, sorry. Ooh. Some of these are overlapping each other. Oh, there we go. All right. Yeah, asking someone, yeah, you want someone to ask you, how can I help? Amazing. Yes, being a friend, asking if I'm okay. Yeah, just checking in with someone sometimes, like after a situation too, just kind of coming up to them being like, hey, like, how was that for you? Were you okay with what just happened? Like, how can I support you right now? Thank you. I love seeing these. All right, I'm gonna think if where's my little, there we go. All right, I'm gonna clear these and we're gonna move on to the next slide that also offers you some kind of ways of intervening. So if you can see this little visual, you can just tell folks that something's not okay with you. Or one I really like to do is kind of like asking questions, like being like, yeah, like, where are you coming from? Instead of like, what do you mean by that? Especially when someone tells like a joke that you feel uncomfortable with, like, well, why is that? Explain that one to me. And when people explain it to you, they realize that it's not funny. Like this little one over here. Or like letting them know that you're not comfortable with something that they're saying, or taking a second to let them know that you need to process, or that something hurt you or was offensive. Just being like, what? I like that. I'm sorry, what? So these are some ways that you might be able to kind of let folks know in a situation like this that you're really thinking about what's going on. So we're kind of rounding out to the end, unless Nick wants to add something about allyship and intervening. All right, great. Well, I hope that this training has offered you all a good sense of sexual orientation, gender identity, gender expression, has helped you think about what your own like sexual orientation, or identity or expression might be, or be aware of the fact that like it can change throughout time, and it might change and it might develop. You heard from Nick and I kind of about our different like twists and turns and kind of how we got to where we are. And I know for me at least, like this is not the final form, right? Like we're all constantly evolving creatures. So I hope that you come away with understanding that, understanding the way that you are protected by the law, especially in California. It's important to remember that there are a lot of places where there are actively laws that are being tried to be put into place that are harmful to specifically a lot of trans folks and also LGBTQIA+ folks in general. But a lot of trans folks and trans youth in different states are having laws come through that are trying to actively harm them. And so it would be great if you all could, if you're aware of those already, find ways to fight those or learn more information. A quick Google will definitely get you some information, or maybe your, like my Instagram feed is, we got a lot of that on the Instagram. Lots of posts about that. And yeah, I hope that you all can come out of this thinking about how you show up for people and how you want other people to show up for you as an ally and as a supporter. And you have these awesome resources like us, Rainbow Community Center, and also this Courage. You all seem really awesome, and I love the content that you all are bringing to your crew. And I can't remember if Nick shared this earlier, but Nick, do you want to share how folks can get involved with our youth program?
Yeah, so if you are interested in our youth program, you can either email me. We also post our events that if you're interested in a specific group, we usually post them on our Instagram and our TikTok. And we'll put like the link to register in our Instagram bio and TikTok bio. So I'm actually gonna send that to everyone now, our like ads, as well as my email. You should be getting that now. Yeah, and feel free to reach out if you need any support with anything. We're here to support you. That is what I am literally here for. So please don't hesitate. And thank y'all so much for listening. And I'm excited to answer some questions.
Yes, thank you, Nick. Also, no one told me that we had a TikTok, and I'm so excited to go check that out. I'm gonna pass it off back to our Courage crew before we do our Q&A.
We have a few upcoming events. On April 29th, we have financial competency, and on May 13th, we have mental health and wellness. It is not too late to register, so tell your friends and sign up. The first 250 people to register will receive an amazing self-care package in May. We hope to see you there. Next slide.
We'd like to share some resources with you. So all these links that you see right up here are being dropped in the chat box right now. And you'll also be able to receive them in a follow-up email. So we have the site link for the Contra Costa County Office of Education, Tobacco Use Prevention Education, or TUPE for short, the Rainbow Community Center, and the Contra Costa Crisis Center. And if you need to seek crisis or non-crisis assistance for yourself or someone else, you can call 211, text HOPE to 20121, or text zip code, I'm assuming your zip code, to TXT 211, 898-211.
All right, thank you all for attending this event. We really appreciate it, and we hope that you enjoyed the presentations. We'd really like to get your feedback on the session, so please scan the QR code that's being showed on the screen right now. You can use the link in the chat box to complete the confidential survey, so no one will see your answers. We'll start the QA session in just a minute, so stick around if you'd like. Thank you again for the attending Contra Costa County Student Wellness Series.
We have a question by Anisha. Can you please explain the meaning of being queer versus pansexual?
I'll take that one. Yeah, so pansexual is being attracted to all genders. Queer is what some folks like to use as an umbrella term to describe the entire like LGBTQ community, or like namely folks who aren't straight. Queer can mean it's specific to literally whoever you ask. Like Parisa said, they have a different definition of queer than I do, than the next person. So it's really a queer is you really just gotta ask someone what they mean by that. What that does that look like to you? But pansexual is usually attraction to all genders. Yeah. Did you want to add on to that, Parisa?
Oh, that sounded like exactly what I would say. And also, I hope you all don't mind I stopped the screen share because I like to be able to see people's faces better. But if you want me to put it back up, I can.
Awesome.
Those are all the questions we have for now, but if you guys like, just put some in the Q&A box.
Yeah, if there are any extra more questions that folks want to add, we can, or it looks like we can say thank you all for coming. And we really appreciated being here with you and getting to hold some space with you all. And I really appreciate Tupi and Courage and yeah, everyone involved in this. Nicole, did you have any closing thoughts on that? All right. Cool. Well, thank you, everyone. I hope that you all have an amazing night. And it was great to meet all of you. Bye.